At this time, we're back. Eric DeSobe here, joined by Maryam. Maryam and I met a couple weeks ago at a dinner, and Maryam, one of the things we were talking about was the increase in fraud candidates, kind of fraud everywhere in the recruitment process. And we'll get into a little bit of your actual job in a second, but what kind of crazy fraud stories are you seeing these days?
Well, hello. It is fascinating. I mean, it's not just fraud in hiring. There's the deep fake everywhere. For hiring, some of the crazy cases that we are seeing is impersonators
Oof.
right now. So we have individuals that both create, like fabricate an identity, a LinkedIn profile, and so forth. But then there are also individuals that are impersonating a completely legitimate individuals. And in those cases, even background check clears. And that's a very scary part.
Very
Yeah,
scary. Yeah, for sure. Well, and then so you work for a company that's trying to help recruiters in that world. Give folks the scoop on where you work and what you're trying to do.
absolutely. I'm the founder of Attesto. We are creating the trust layer for hiring. And that is a combination of using data, using machine learning models, and using human input to figure out if you can trust someone, if you can trust a candidate. And what it does, it looks at a variety of signals. It looks at hundreds of signals from the application, whether it's the resume, the IP address, the questions that the candidate has answered already, their LinkedIn profile, their online footprint, phone number, email address, all of that holistically. And then we detect if the candidate seems to be clear of fraud and they're authentic, or they're suspicious of fraud. And we have a growing number of verified fraud cases
Hmm.
that could be useful to hiring teams.
So as a recruiter, what are the kind of low level things that they could do on their own? And then what are the extra things that you provide that it's unlikely a recruiter could reasonably try to put into motion?
Absolutely. I mean, some of the things that great recruiters are already doing, they look at, the LinkedIn profile, they look at the resume to see if, things are kind of fishy. Maybe like the LinkedIn profile is missing verification, has low number of followers, and so forth. So those are the things that were very useful a few months ago. Now fraudsters are becoming smarter. We see that they actually create LinkedIn profiles that are verified by LinkedIn, has hundreds of followers, and they're still fabricated. So it becomes even harder to do that. They can definitely, recruiters do a Google search. For some of the roles, it would make sense. For some of those candidates, you expect some sort of an online footprint. So they can do that. Of course, that's all like time consuming. So Attesto would take care of that. And some of the other things that we would do that's not readily available to all recruiters is that like a reverse phone lookup. Like what is the
Hmm.
name associated to this phone number? What's the type of phone number? What would be the email kind of online footprint? Like does this seem to be a recently created email address or not? Is this email address actually associated to the LinkedIn profile? So these are the things that we do behind the scene that is harder for the recruiter to do. And the other thing that we would do is like every week we are training our models with the new data that is actually labeled by human experts. So this is like a way to stay up to date on the new patterns of fraud. So to your point, there are a few checks that a recruiter could do. It takes time, but also there are things that are actually harder for us humans to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And so for your product then, is it something that integrates into the ATS system that a recruiter might have? Does it live outside of it? What's the best way to explain that?
Absolutely. So it integrates with the ATS. It can also integrate with the kind of security platforms that teams are already using, companies are already using. But typically, it integrates with the ATS. It gets all the information from the ATS real time. It pushes back to the ATS, in form of tags and notes and so forth. We also have like a browser extension that describes why a candidate, is a suspicious or is clear of fraud. But what we could do is if there are other platforms that get the data, such as the device data, IP address, so forth. We can integrate into those as well, and then we also integrate with the workflows with Slack bot and so forth. So it's very important to us that we don't create friction for the teams, because the teams are already very busy to go through the applications, and we are saving them a great deal of time. We don't want to actually ask them to go to another platform and ask
Right.
them to spend more time that way.
One thing you must have an interesting take on is, as a recruiter, you're always trying to be mindful of your team's budget. So adding any extra services like yours, you have to really consider the cost. But I imagine the cost of one fraud candidate getting through can be really expensive. Like, how do you think through the cost benefit analysis as you're pitching this idea to recruiters?
Absolutely. I think that is the case for any AI tool. Like, you got to do the ROI analysis. So the way that we are doing it is twofold. One is the time saving, and that would be how much time you are saving on the application
Mm,
review, because we also help with finding fit candidates. So it's not just the fraud detection, but also finding qualified candidates. So we help with that, and saving time there. Definitely shortening the time to hire, so there is saving there. And so there is that. As if you think about it, is Attesto as a productivity tool, number
mm,
one, and how much time and money is like saving your team based on that. And then the second thing is a risk mitigation tool, right? So to your point, if you have a fraudster, we have basically like individuals from North Korea trying to get hired, and then have access to the data. So it's a big security risk for
mm.
companies. Even if they go through the interviews and they don't get hired at the end, you might expose some IP during the interview process. So the cost of that, in average, I mean, there are different studies, but in average is about like 700K. But I guess it depends on the company, the role they are applying for, and so forth. But
Right.
that's a huge risk that we're trying to mitigate and help the team mitigate that.
Nice. Well, last thing, if folks wanted to learn more about you and the company and how to reach out, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. So Attesto.com, that's the site, and they can book a demo. We would love to both give them more details, show them how it will work for their team. We can also give them a link to do the ROI analysis as well. And then they can also email me or reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Great. And we'll put that info in the episode description. Miriam, thanks for coming on. Thanks everyone for listening. Catch all past episodes of At This Time, all the places you get your podcast. And don't forget to watch us on YouTube. Until next time, we'll catch you soon.